over. There's a few more people.
I got nothing on vacation here. Oh, you're going up there now? Yeah. I didn't want to be in front of the equipment.
Oh yeah, yeah. You bet. Yep. Yeah, my
Here, just get out of the way.
Mangeo. I'm a professor of anthropology and chair of the Faculty Senate. Please join me in thanking Garrett Snedeker again for that wonderful performance. Garrett will be graduating in May with a Bachelor of Music degree in piano performance and pedagogy. He just performed 3 selections for us: Sonata in E-flat major allegro by Joseph Haydn, Sonata in E-flat major by Ludwig van Beethoven, and Carreta Jaca by Chicana Gonzaga, Brazil's first female professional pianist. Garrett is the 2017 winner of the Washington State Music Teachers Association Young Artist Piano Competition. A member of the Honors College, he currently is a semifinalist for a Fulbright Award. You are invited to join Garrett for his senior recital starting at 8 p.m. this Thursday, March 28th, in the Kimborough Concert Hall. His piano multimedia performance will feature visual art by WSU student and vocalist Claire Sullivan, paired with 2 preludes by Claude Debussy. The recital will also feature climate research by Sarah Murphy, a PhD candidate in environmental sciences, combined with a piano piece by Turkish composer Fazıl Say that Garrett will perform. Welcome to the faculty, staff, and students. Welcome to the faculty, staff, students, and other members of the community gathered in the theater and joining us online today from across the WSU system. Indicative of the increasing role of technology in our lives, last year's State of the University address attracted 300 attendees to the theater and another 300 viewers online. I suspect that is the case today as well. The State of the University address has been almost an annual university event since at least the mid-1980s, when Samuel Smith served as WSU's president. The address provides an opportunity for our statewide community to celebrate achievements from the past year, learn about current priorities, and consider future opportunities. This afternoon, President Schultz will share his optimism about the university and the opportunities WSU has to play an increasingly vital role in our state and beyond in the coming years. The President will begin his remarks by highlighting some of the university's top accomplishments from 2018, particularly those that are enhancing WSU's ability to serve the future needs of the state of Washington. Following his opening comments, he will discuss some of the university's top system-wide initiatives with WSU Vancouver and Carson College of Business faculty member Donna Paul, who has served as a faculty member on 3 WSU campuses, Pullman, Tri-Cities, and now Vancouver. Dr. Paul conducts research in corporate financial decision-making. She has been recognized for teaching excellence by both undergraduate and MBA students. Dr. Paul will incorporate questions submitted in advance by the university community during her dialogue with the President. Following the completion of the dialogue, there will be a few minutes for questions from the audience and viewers online. At the conclusion of the program, those in Pullman are invited to a reception in the foyer. The Crimson Flute Trio, composed of students Elaine Matier, Marissa Watanabe, and Sophia Shaika, will perform during the reception. Finally, a special thanks to our sign language interpreters for today's event, Sean Hardesty and Ashley DeTour. It is now my pleasure to introduce WSU President Kirk Schultz. President Schultz is nearing the end of his 3rd term as the university's president. He became the 11th president of WSU and a tenured professor in the Gene and Linda Volin School of Chemical Engineering and Bioengineering on June 13, 2016, after a 7-year tenure as president of Kansas State University. President Schultz has made a remarkable impact while serving as WSU's chief executive. The milestones achieved under his leadership include record student enrollment, record research and development expenditures, the addition of new academic degree programs to meet statewide needs, continued growth of the College of Medicine, which admitted its second class of first-year students last fall, and the launch of a statewide initiative focused on making WSU one of the nation's top 25 public research universities by 2030. Please join me in welcoming President Kirk Schultz.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to see everybody out this year. I think this is a much larger crowd than we had last year. So last year's address shouldn't have been too bad if you decided to come out this year. Let me also welcome all of our folks that are joining us online at our different campus locations or in your offices. And we look forward to responding to questions and concerns and ideas that people have that they submit as we go through today. I think also we are mixing it up a little bit this year. Rather than doing 45 minutes worth of slides and then just doing questions from the audience, what we decided this year is to do much fewer slides and maybe like a 20-minute or so presentation on some of the great things that have happened at WSU this last year. Then Donna and I are going to have a little more conversational style around questions and things that we receive from the campus community ahead of time. So there may be things in the room that those of you submitted those questions or from other campus locations. And then we'll have just a little bit of time for questions from the floor. And if we don't have a lot of questions from the floor submitted online, we'll continue just to work our way through the things that were sent ahead of time. So I'm looking forward to a great afternoon spent talking about some of the great stuff at WSU. The other part that I think is really important is that we do this during Showcase Week. And to me, this is really one of our highlights of the week where we get to celebrate so much of our academic success by our students, faculty, and staff. We had an undergraduate research poster presentation, we got the 3-minute thesis competition, and so on, culminating by us recognizing some of our truly best faculty colleagues Friday evening at sort of the Showcase Gala event. But to me, this is one of the most fun weeks of the year where we really get to focus, and it's fun to see our students doing research and scholarship and things like that get a chance to stand up and talk about the cool things that they're doing. So we want to continue to have the State of the University address as a little bit of a bookend, if you will, to Showcase. One of the challenges we have today is there's a lot of changes going on in higher education. I look at the Chronicle of Higher Education on a pretty regular basis. I'm sure you're not surprised the president would do that. But as we look around the country, we see a lot of changes out there. For one, we see a lot of schools, particularly small liberal arts schools that don't have large endowments, that are closing their doors because they financially can no longer make ends meet. We see an increasingly skeptical public that sometimes is asking, is a higher education experience really worth it? Do you need a college degree to be successful? Define success how you will. We've got states that are divesting from providing the needed resources for public higher education to move forward. And we can go on and on and on, and it doesn't, the last couple of weeks, right, we've had a couple notable things. One, we've had a presidential proclamation on free speech on campuses, and follow that up with the week or two before that, what we termed it admissions scandals at some very elite schools where parents and other people were using strong influence and dollars and things like that to try and get their children in. So the bottom line is higher education is in the public eye for lots of things. And to me, we can worry about it or we can look upon it as really an opportunity. So one of the things that's really important for us is we got to continue to evolve. We got to continue to do things differently. We got to continue to ask ourselves, are we doing, just because we did something the same way for 128 years, do we want to do that same way moving forward? In one of my recent letters to campus, and I brought a prop with me today, I mentioned this book, Land-Grant Universities for the Future, Higher Education for the Public Good, by Steve Gavazzi and Gordon Gee. Steve Gavazzi is going to be visiting our campus in early May for 2 days, talking about the book and engaging with us in conversations about the future of land-grant universities. Well, we're doing a lot of other planning activities on campus. We got our strategic planning activities going on. We have the Drive to 25. We have 5 groups of faculty, staff, and students working in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion on our campus and what we can do to improve our campus climate. And I can go on and on and on with the different activities that we have. So it's great that we have these planning things, but we got to kind of pull them together. We don't need 18 different plans. We need one really comprehensive plan for WSU, and we need it for WSU as a system, and this is what's different, as well as WSU Pullman as a campus community. And I think those are going to be some challenging things. We want to make sure we're asking ourselves the right question. What are we doing to make sure we're advancing the state of Washington, and how do we balance that out with our desire to be recognized as a top public, international and nationally renowned university. And I think instead of shying away from those kind of discussions, we want to step into them and really look forward to our future, and I look forward to doing that as a campus community. I also today, though, want to reflect back, take a step back at some of the great things that have happened over this past year. So, access to higher education. This is part of the DNA of WSU. This last year, 31,500 students elected to be part of the Coug family across all of our campuses, global campus, and our 5 campus locations. Largest enrollment in our university's history. Really proud of that particular fact. It's great that we have more and more Cougs, but let's look a little bit about our students that come in. 30% of our students across the system are students from diverse backgrounds. 34% of our students across our system are first-generation students. Those are really critical. 78% of our students are Washington residents. And I think it's important when we talk about doing things for the state of Washington that our student body and the people that we recruit are reflective of our state and the direction our state's going. While we've also done that, we've also increased the academic qualifications of the class coming in. If we look over the last 3 years, the average GPA of an entering student at WSU went from a 3.32 to nearly a 3.4. So we're bringing in diverse classes, we're bringing in academically qualified classes, we're sticking with our DNA around first generation, and that's really an important thing for us to do moving forward. We also have innovative academic programming, and to me there's 2 buckets here that we want to look at. The first bucket is, what are new academic programs that WSU needs to do, not just in Pullman, but across our campus system? And then we also should have a second bucket is, what are we doing with the academic programs we have that sometimes need not tweaking or chewing around the edges, but major revision that's completely doing things differently than we've done before to make sure our students have the best chance of success. So some of our new programs, our data analytics program, it's a joint effort between the College of Arts and Sciences and the Voiland College of Engineering and Architecture. We have our first 8 graduates coming out of this program in May. All have great job opportunities awaiting them. And we have over 100 students enrolled in this particular program, and it's going to grow larger and larger each semester. This is one that's responding to people out there, colleagues and partners in the state that say, we need students with this type of background, and I commend our faculty and people getting together and starting an interdisciplinary program between a couple colleges. Another example is we had a collaborative effort between our Tri-Cities, Vancouver, and Pullman campuses in training paraeducators to work in the K through 12 area with English as a second language. And it turns out there was only 13 total folks with this training in the entire state of Washington. Next year, in May, WSU is graduating 53 people trained in that particular area. So this, again, is a new program across our system that's meeting a need in the state. Now, the other bucket there was revision of programs. So one of the things recently, the Carson College of Business went through a program that, of course, they branded it, the Next Carson Coug. And this is really revising their curriculum, not chewing around the edges, but almost a complete redo to say, what are we doing to make sure that we're preparing business graduates from WSU to be successful in the marketplace, to have that educational background they need to still be successful in 20 or 30 years. And our faculty have worked together, and it's hard, but guess what? We're going to see a complete different curriculum in our College of Business. So when we look at these new academic programs, let's keep in mind that we need new ones, but we also sometimes need to do fruit basket turnover and really serious revision of the programs that we currently have. A transformative student experience. This is all part of WSU and has been for the longest period of time, kind of one of our two key principles when moving ahead. We have a variety of programs in the Office of the Provost and Student Affairs and lots of different places across campus that we believe, and many of you lead in this room, that make a real transformative difference to our students. But there's really two things I want to highlight here. The first is when I first arrived, we had some incidents on campus that really showed that we needed to do things about our community standards. We had not done much with our community standards in years. We tweaked them. It's really hard. And so we got a group of faculty, staff, students, alumni together. The bottom line, took 2 years to update our community standards for student conduct and things like this, and put in place, take an antiquated system out that had worked for some period of time and put in place a state-of-the-art student conduct system. That's being launched now, and I think sometimes people can get frustrated with things on campus, right? How come it's taken so long? What we want to make sure that we do is when we put things in place, we have to look at sustainability. We have to look at putting something in place that's there for the long term. Doesn't mean you don't change it, but sometimes we can do a Band-Aid fix, and then 6 months later, guess what? Since we didn't fix the problem right the first time, we're doing it all over again, and then it wastes people's time. So I want to commend all of our folks that were involved and engaged in updating our community standards. The other thing is about 1.5 years ago, we had a group of our students, largely, that felt that we were not doing enough as a leadership team and at WSU in terms of equity, inclusion, and diversity on our campus. We had 5 groups that faculty, staff, and students that started working on some of the issues that were raised, and we're just now starting to roll out some of the planning and some of the success that came out of the hard work those groups have been putting in. So to begin with, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to have a goal well, let me back up. What's happened is one of the things that came out of that was we needed implicit bias training for search committees. So that group worked with the folks on campus. We have implicit bias training put together. And one of our goals is going to be for next academic year that 100% of our search committees will go through implicit bias training. We're not going to require it and force people to do it. What happens is I want people to say, you know what, we want to hire colleagues from a variety of areas to have a diverse faculty and staff. We want this training to make sure that we're doing the absolutely very best job that we can. The other thing that we're doing is we're also going to be launching and have system-wide training for cultural competency. That's going to start with the leadership, the President's Cabinet, deans, that particular group this summer. Going to go through our training. It'll be ready for all campuses to use this particular fall, both online versions, in-person versions. And these were some of the things that came out of a group of our students stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, we need to make sure that we're taking care of things at WSU. You can talk a good game on inclusivity and equity and diversity. Here's some things that need to be happening. Now, I want to remind everybody that these are a journey. It's a step that we're taking. This isn't the destination. And so when people say, well, that's great first step, Kirk, well, what about next? Guess what? We're already working on what those next steps would look like. But let's take this first step down the road so that we make sure that we don't backtrack over time. Fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. This is something that we want to do within the campus community, and we want to do it with both faculty, staff, and students. So we have a couple programs. Brian Kraft leads an effort out of the Office of Research that is really looking at entrepreneurship within the faculty ranks. we have these entrepreneurial faculty fellows. And I know from watching people come in, there's several here in the room and probably watching online. And the idea was to take some of our faculty that have had some successes at starting small businesses and doing what we would term activities that normally are outside of what we reward within our academic structure, been very successful at doing that. And now they're here sharing ideas back and forth about what works, what doesn't work. We want to continue to expand that program. Brian's team also has helped manage the Amazon Catalyst program, a $300,000 gift to WSU that Amazon provided those dollars for idea generation by faculty, staff, and students, where they just re-upped that program. We heard in the last week or two it's going to be structured a little bit differently, but we're going to start seeing more resources coming in that say, how do you think differently? How do we do things differently? And how do we make sure we reward faculty and staff that may do things outside of some of the traditional things that we've done as academics for 128 years here. The other part is the Center for Entrepreneurial Studies in the Carson College of Business. This is, even though it's housed in the College of Business, there's lots of competitions and opportunities for our students to participate that have ideas, out-of-the-box thinkers. They want to put things together. They have teams. They need to go somewhere and get some help. This is where they can go and do that. So we want to continue to foster innovation, entrepreneurship within the academy and within our students. And we've got some programs underway to do that. Research that spurs the economy. We are a large public research university across all of our campuses, and we have many, many things to be proud of. An example, though, of some of the things that directly affect the state of Washington, we just recently got word, and this was in one of my last campus letters, that we're going to get $110 million or so from the federal government to build a new state-of-the-art research facility here in Pullman. It'll be a combined Agricultural Research Service, WSU facility. It'll have staff and faculty from our various units on campus. It's also going to have ARS scientists. One of the things that's unique about WSU, if you walk through a lot of our buildings that we do in collaboration with the Ag Research Service, you can't always tell who's a WSU faculty member, who's an ARS employee. We need that kind of collaboration moving forward. This facility then will help us support the state's $51 billion ag and food industry. So this is the kind of research and things that we're doing to support the state. College of Veterinary Medicine has a major impact on our state. They are now ranked 3rd nationally in terms of federal research funding. This last year, they just passed Cornell and Penn in terms of overall research funding, and we continue to see great growth out of veterinary medicine. This is one of those areas I could go on with achievement after achievement, but it's important that we do internationally renowned research. We'll talk about that. National renowned research, but it's important too that WSU, as land-grant university, make sure that we're focusing on what the state of Washington needs to be competitive. Solutions for climate change and energy challenges, particularly on the West Coast and in the state of Washington, a lot of interest and desire around what types of things we can do for climate change. One of the leading greenhouse gases, CO2. We have some of our faculty, staff, and students that recently have discovered a process to remove a lot of CO2 from emissions through industrial processes. One of the other things, we have an aging population in the United States. And it turns out that one of the things that we want to do, again, in a collaborative way, is use smart home technologies to help that aging population be able to stay in their residence, in their home for longer. This requires work out of lots of different colleges and lots of different academic disciplines to do that. But this is another area that WSU is really leading the way. Solutions in law and order. Out of our Department of Criminology, we've got a lot of really cool work that's happening here as well. You can't go through the state of Washington, or you can't even really go much in the way of Pullman without seeing another legalized marijuana store that's sort of popping up somewhere. Well, guess what? We have some faculty then that are working with law enforcement on things like what are the policy impacts, what are the financial impacts of legalized marijuana. We also have faculty working on risk management tools for people in prison on recurring offenses. So sometimes when we talk about research and scholarship, we can talk about certainly things in engineering, veterinary medicine, and so forth, but we've got great research going on in the humanities and social sciences as well that's also having a significant impact, not just on this area, but on the state of Washington, the way we do things. Healthcare for the state's underserved. We've talked a lot about this at WSU over my tenure as president and before that. We now have a network of over 85 healthcare providers in the state of Washington, hospitals, clinics, everything from Forks and the Peninsula to Spokane and Seattle and Everett, in large, massive healthcare complexes. And this is important because this network that's out there is going to serve as teaching areas for our medical students, and we're going to find ways to get nursing and pharmacy and other people in the healthcare also to be able to utilize this really great network. We're also going to be in a position through a nice gift that came to the College of Medicine to take healthcare out to areas that don't have any facilities for healthcare. We have mobile units that are going to be designed and custom built, and it's going to allow us to take these mobile units out to extremely rural areas of the state of Washington where there is no healthcare or healthcare providers anywhere close by, and be able to give our students and our faculty and other people experience working in these particular areas. But we also have health challenges, and there are some dramatic health challenges that our state is dealing with. So one of the things that we have is really a center that's working on issues around equity in the health system. This is combined between the L.S. Floyd College of Medicine and the College of Arts and Sciences, looking at things how poverty, race, nutrition, all combine together to affect people's health and their health care and their health outlook. We also have a center called iReach that many of you have heard of that moved from the University of Washington to Washington State. iReach has done over $100 million worth of research, and they're centered at WSU Spokane over the last multiple years. It's been a transformational center for WSU. One of the areas they've expanded with funding from the National Institute of Health is in Alzheimer's for Native populations throughout the U.S. So when we look at some of these healthcare disparities and healthcare challenges, it's not just about producing a different workforce, it's bringing research to bear through organizations like iReach and HERC that involve our faculty across multiple disciplines, really trying to tackle some of these very serious problems. Research with international benefits. We have lots of you all that do projects that have international partners. Two that I'll just quickly highlight. We have a U.S.-India joint project with the Department of Energy. It's a $30 million project that's looking at the electric grid, both for the U.S. and for India. Well, we have different types of things that we need to solve an electric grid between those two places. And one of the things is how do you use green forms of energy, solar, wind, other types of things like that on those particular grids, and how do you make sure you have stable electrical systems in both those countries. So a lot of joint work going on that. In the area of antimicrobial resistance, we are leading efforts through our College of Veterinary Medicine and the Paul G. Allen School for Global Animal Health, focused around antimicrobial resistance and making sure that we don't prescribe antibiotics so much that they no longer function very well. Well, guess what? As we work in Tanzania and Kenya, they have a different set of challenges around antimicrobial resistance than we're going to have in the United States. Again, what's critical here is not that WSU is just doing it, but we're leading it, and I think that's important for both these projects. Partnerships that address state and national needs. You all saw this last year that we had our first formalized partnerships with Pacific Northwest National Lab. We had 3 institutes that were really started off. One is in electric grid, one is in nuclear science, and a third is in bioproducts. These are areas where WSU had great experience already, but guess what? The lab brings some equipment and other types of things to bear that we don't have. The researchers at the lab would love access to PhD students and some of the academic culture and ability to teach and interact with academic colleagues in a different way. So the reason institutes like this can be successful is each of us brings something to the table that the other person didn't have. I think in a decade, we're going to look back and we're going to see other institutes between PNNL and WSU that make sense for both of us as we move forward. Additional notable accomplishments. Okay, we could have a slide here and I could talk for 10 or 15 minutes on these alone, but let's talk about a few kind of key things. First, we opened up the Jordan Snitzer Museum of Art this last year. Any of you have been through that? What a fantastic facility, centrally located on campus. Starting this summer, every orientation session is going to go through that museum. So we want all of our students, when they come here, to recognize that the visual arts are a really critical part of the WSU community. As you also have seen, we have lots of different artists and things going through. And as a reminder, we want people to feel challenged, right? It's not just go and, you don't know what else to do with your parents when they're here, right? So students take them to the art museum. It's also for us as faculty and staff to use as a learning environment and a place to go to be challenged, to see things differently, and to invite people to come and sort of see our campus. So the second thing, the Carson College of Business, the Executive MBA program, our online MBA program, was ranked by U.S. News and World Report as 23rd out of 285 programs. That is really significant. We're very proud of that. The university also went through NWCCU reaccreditation and passed with flying colors. Many of you in the room and online worked very, very hard to make this happen. I've never seen a more positive report over an entire university reaccreditation as we received on that. The final thing I'll talk about is game day. For those of you who participated, we had 30,000 people there. When I left our house at 5 in the morning, you could hear it already. Living close to Fraternity and Sorority Row, I can normally hear lots of things at night, but you could hear this. And what was neat is it was a 3-hour commercial for Pullman, the Palouse, and WSU. So on our admissions webpage, on the week leading up to game day, we saw a 25% increase in hits. For the main university webpage, we saw a 13% increase in hits. And it's a reminder that when these seminal positive things occur on campus, lots of people are looking at WSU as a potential place to be a faculty member, a staff member, or a student. So as I wrap this up, I can't mention anything about State of the University without talking at least a little bit about the Drive to 25. A couple notable positive achievements in the Drive to 25. We saw 2 of the metrics we made substantial progress in this last year. Number of PhD students that we graduate as a WSU system, we moved up 10 places from 54 to 44 nationally among public universities. In terms of degrees, in terms of awards and recognition for our faculty, we moved up even more to 37th place nationally. So now all 6 of the key measures that we use, the Center for Measuring University Performance and the Drive to 25, are all ranked between 26 and 50. And that's a really significant accomplishment, and that's really due to you all as faculty and staff and the hard work that you do. So, bottom line, I think it's a great time to be associated with WSU, great time to be a Coug. We have a lot of positive momentum. We have our challenges, but I think we've got great opportunities ahead of us as we really seek to work together as a campus community to say, what do we want to be in the future? What types of things are part of our DNA that we're going to keep, that no matter what happens have got to be part of us, but what are the things that we can change moving forward to make sure that we continue to evolve and transform ourselves so that we continue to meet the needs of the state of Washington at the same time as fulfilling our national, international aspirations as a leading public research university. So thank you, and I invite Donna to come on up, and we'll have a little bit of a sit down and chat now. And that is water in those coffee cups, I will tell you that. So thank you. Thank you.
Oops.
Oh, sorry.
I have your prop.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Well, that was great. You talked a lot about how old we are. It's our birthday week, and we are doing really well. We've accomplished so much over the last year, and I think there are many reasons for us to be proud. And optimistic about the future, about WSU. So we're going to use this time to talk a little bit more, in a little bit more depth, about some of the initiatives that are currently underway. And before we do that, I thought maybe you could lay the table. Since we are in our living room now, we could consider laying the table a little bit. Big picture, talk about, as you look back over the last couple of years and look forward to the future, what do you see as some of the big opportunities that we have as a community, and how can we use our strengths to take advantage of those opportunities?
Yeah, I think there's just, I mentioned before, I think the opportunity for us to plan together is a really significant opportunity for us across the system. And I say that, and generally, when I talk to our colleagues in the Faculty Senate, our vice presidents, our deans, other faculty across campus, and you talk about doing any planning, most of the time people's eyes roll up and they think, oh my God, another plan that's going to sit on the shelf. I think what's been different to me is I've talked with faculty, staff, and students across campuses. I think they're all eager for us to be saying, hey, what can we do? Where can we go? What's important to us? And how can we make sure that's part of our planning moving forward? Now, that doesn't mean everybody agrees on everything that we're going to do. And I think, I don't know of any group of faculty that ever get together and agree on anything. But we can pick some things that are prevalent that most people say, you know what, that's important to us. And I think that's to me is our really significant opportunity moving ahead. The challenge, and there's a couple, the challenge is when you do something like that, we've got to focus around, if you lay out a plan, you got to stick with it. And that doesn't mean that you don't look and see some other things that you'd like to do and that we, go grab those. But if you're not careful, you wind up having this plan, you're carefully articulate it, you tie in budget to it, and then you sort of see something, oh, this looks pretty cool, and then you deviate and you go grab that. And then you see something else that looks pretty cool, and you go do that. And then after 5 years, everybody goes, well, you didn't stick to what you said you were going to. You spent money on things that weren't there, and we haven't advanced maybe the way that we would like to. So discipline to stick with a plan, I think, is also really, really important in the long run. The other opportunity we have, opportunity is a presidential lexicon, right, for challenge, is our budget. And if I look, I'm so proud of the positive progress we've made as a university over a short period of time. A $30 million annual structural deficit is a lot. And this next year, we're going to be very, very close to zero. We won't quite be there yet, but that's a notable achievement. And that doesn't happen just because I issued an edict or some VP did something. That's faculty and staff rolling up their sleeves, working together to sort of say, hey, we got to get ourselves in a better place. So the question is, as you start getting those positive dollars coming back, where do we invest them? What types of things do we want to do with those particular dollars? We never will be short of ideas, but I think it's really critical moving ahead and you move out of sort of the budget cutting mode, if you will. How do we make sure that we're investing in things and do it in a transparent fashion? We can't be transparent when we have a budget challenge, and then all of a sudden when we start getting things better, we go back to sort of the closed book idea where everybody goes, well, I don't know what's going on. If we're going to keep open and transparent, people criticize decisions. They're not going to like everything. That's okay. But everybody should go, I at least understand and know why those decisions were made. So,
thank you. So you brought your prop.
Yes.
And I actually did read the book. And I have to say I didn't read it because you had talked about it. But a few weeks ago, someone on your leadership team tweeted a photo of the book next to a glass of wine. And I said, I have to read that book. So I did read it. So in Guion Gavazzi's book, they talk about how important land-grant universities are. But in particular, they suggest that the only way that land grants are going to be able to overcome some of the threats that they face is by taking a relationship-building approach with stakeholders and communities rather than a transactional approach that might have been the way we went in the past. So can you talk a bit about the importance of relationship building?
Absolutely. I think we talk about relationship building sometimes. We talk about it internally with our colleagues. We can talk about it with donors and benefactors to the institution. To me, that goes to legislative colleagues and people as well, and they want to have relationships and know what we're trying to do. And so to me, I'm going to use the medical school as a classic positive example of some of what they say in the Gavazzi book about being focused around the state of Washington. If we said we want a medical school, we want to start this medical school, and guess what? We're really worried about producing doctors for the nation. And we want to make sure that our docs go to Texas and California and all these other places. And then you sit down with a Washington legislator, and you know what? They got 6 times as much stuff to try and fund as they have money. You say, well, why bother? You know, what difference does that really make? How does that help people I know and work with? I think the fact that we did a couple key things there is really a classic positive example. One, we said we're only going to take Washington residents in the medical school. We're not going to even go out of state. They got to be from Washington. And 2, our goal here is to produce physicians for the underserved and rural areas in the state of Washington. And then we have a focused plan around that. It doesn't mean everybody was supportive, because they weren't. But what happened was an awful lot of people were supportive. And if you look at the total amount of dollars that the state is investing in that, folks, there's almost nothing else we could do that would get that level of base budget adjustment, not one-time money, but base budget adjustment. And that's because I think it fit a need for the state. We were the land-grant university. We were there. We were focused on that particular aspect. And I think that is an illustration of not just relationship building, but it's good idea, relationship building, tenacity, and sticking with our guns. And interestingly, I met with several people in Olympia over this session so far, and even the people that didn't want to say yes necessarily to our funding request said, but WSU, you stuck by your guns, you did exactly what you said you were going to do, and you've really stayed true to what President Floyd talked about when Dan was president, and now when you're president. All through the 3 of you, you've been very consistent, and you've done that, and that's the relationship building that we need. So guess what? We're going to sit down with some other opportunity, who knows what it is, in the next several years, and we're going to get the benefit of the doubt because we've developed those relationships and we've stuck by our guns.
Great. We do have a couple questions that came in from the community, and I'll try to squeeze them in here. And this one has to do with town gown. This questioner asks, will you speak to some of the current town gown initiatives? That's hard to say fast. And why they're so important for attracting and retaining top faculty and staff, and also their importance for our student success.
You know, I think a small community can do amazing things when you have sets of people together on the same page. And we tend to think of ourselves as a university, a lot of smart men and women here, and sometimes we can get a little bit, hey, we know what's best for everybody kind of mentality. So when I arrived, the regents, actually one of the first things they said was, Kirk, we don't feel the relationship between WSU and Pullman and our community in Pullman is as strong as it could be. And so sat down with the mayor. We had several people in my office and others, Chris Hoyt, and a lot of people in the room were involved and engaged in a session with the community about what we could do together. So the first session, and many of you have been through these kind of things, half community, half university. Let's just say, pleasantly, it was a venting session about every ill that the university had done over the past 20 years that some community members didn't like. But what I was really proud of is by the second meeting, that was all kind of behind us, and people started saying, what can we do together? And so to me, if you look at SEL, you look at WSU, you look at the city of Pullman, and you get all 3 of us aligned, that's a pretty powerful set of individuals and groups that can make some things happen. So for example, I feel that our downtown continues to need some work. When I first got here, I heard a lot of people say, well, you know, I love eating at Black Cypress or Rico's or whatever, but as soon as I'm done, I get in my car and leave because there's nothing else to do. But boy, in Moscow, look at that. They got all this great stuff down there, and I thought, you know, why shouldn't we have a more vibrant downtown area? Now, if the university just steps in and goes, let me tell you what we have to do down here, you've lost it already. So what happened is we spent a couple years, and again, I say we, I'm taking credit for it. Chris and several other people in the area in my office really spearheaded this. We started a Downtown Merchants Association. So in a 9-block radius, we had a graduate student that was working in the president's office that interviewed every business in a 9-block radius, said, what can we do for you? What's important to you? Just a few sets of questions. So we actually had data and information to then use. And so we have this Downtown Merchants Association. Well, guess what? You can't apply for Main Street USA grants if you don't have a Downtown Merchants Association. So we couldn't even do that. Now we have a designation as an arts district, and stuff is starting to happen. But guess what? It's being done collaboratively between the university and the merchants down there, not us telling people what to do, but working together on things. And so I think that's what I want to continue to do. The VPs and deans are at a lot of the key functions in town, like the hospital fundraiser. We need a great hospital and medical complex to recruit people. We need a great school system. We want to do things with the school system. So when I look at it, it's not a thing, and many of you in the room or online are involved in your different communities. I think the Pullman, WSU Pullman sort of relationship was not in a great space. Some of our other campuses, Vancouver, places like that, they had a fantastic long-term positive relationships. And I think we now have that at all of our campus locations, and I'm really, really proud of that, not just in Pullman, but across the system.
Okay, because I did want to tell you Vancouver has a nice downtown.
Yes,
So,
yes. Yeah.
so there's another question that came in. Actually, this is specifically about Vancouver. This person wants to know, how do you see WSU Vancouver working with the career and technical education sector in our community?
You know, one of the things, let me backtrack a little bit and get to that. When I first arrived at WSU, and I've said this to groups before, I remember thinking that essentially you had Pullman, and all of our other campuses really just fed into it. It was, well, I couldn't get into Pullman, so I'm going to be in Vancouver, the Tri-Cities, or whatever. And then after being here for a couple years and visiting these campuses and communities, everybody's crimson, but they're all a little different shades of crimson. Every campus community has its own unique style about it. It's all Cougs, but it's all a little bit different, and I think that's good and that's positive. But what that also means is I can't direct, nor should I, from here, what the relationship's going to be between our campus in Vancouver and the business community there. But I can expect and make sure that our chancellors and our leadership at all of our campuses are actively involved and engaged with the community. In Vancouver, we recently added Max Alt to the professional staff there, and Max's job is to go out and develop partnerships in the Portland-Vancouver area that will benefit WSU as a system, but really focused around opening doors, providing resources, providing opportunities for our students right there in that Southwest Washington Portland area of Oregon. And so I think we're going to continue to see more and more things. The reason when we talk about transformative student experience, it's not just what we do in the classroom. I think that's important. It's the out-of-classroom experiences that I think are really critical. So are students getting internships? Do they have chances for study abroad? What types of things do they have? To me, these relationships we have with our communities help facilitate those types of things.
Okay, so on this subject of relationships, let's squeeze in a question about athletics. Because very often athletics, I think, evokes emotions, usually positive. Some of us worry perhaps about how much money we spend on athletics. So can you talk about the role and value of athletics? What are we getting out of athletics? What does it bring to us as a land grant?
So I think there's a certain elite number of schools out there that whether they have an athletics program or not is immaterial. Stanford University is not going to cease to be one of the top universities in the world if they don't have their athletics programs. There's another tier of schools that I think athletics is a national brand for us, and it's what people recognize. When we see the Cougs, and almost everybody associated with WSU at some point or another, you've traveled, and if you dress up like a human NASCAR like I do with logos everywhere, somebody says something to you somewhere about the university, and you find that you have some connection, it's family members or whatever. Really, a lot of that is due to our athletics teams being seen on national TV, travel around, things like that. The personality of our coaches and all that ties into that. So for me, I see it as very much a positive brand for the university. But it's more than that. It's also, we sometimes think, well, gee, we're just a bunch of semi-pro teams that are kind of loosely affiliated with an academic institution. We sometimes forget that the huge majority of our student athletes, and I'll say 98% of our student athletes, some number around there, they're not going to go play professional sports. They're here to get a degree in engineering or education or the liberal arts, and guess what? They want to go out and they go to law school, or they're going to go out and take that next step in life. And sometimes we get so worried about the role of athletics and that we're preparing people to be professional athletes that we forget about the huge majority of our student athletes are here to have an elite experience in the classroom, and they're here to have an elite experience as student athletes. Nationally, when presidents get together, we all, talk about, are we spending too much in athletics? If any of us hire a new coach in anything, we're like, if I'm going to be reincarnated someday, I'm going to come back as a football coach. It's that kind of thing. So are we spending more than we should? Yeah, probably. But I would argue it's not WSU necessarily. It's everybody's in the same spot. So at WSU, we should expect a couple things. One, we should expect student athletes that are excellent students. As you all as faculty members shouldn't go, oh my God, I got a student athlete in class, they're not going to be able to keep up, whatever. You should expect the kind of people in your class that you go, wow, I can't believe that they're a top tier tennis player and they're studying data analytics. Two, I think you should expect our coaches to be leaders and be visible on campus. And not just visible on the sidelines or in the gym. Three, I think you should expect that we use our resources wisely. We've been running deficits in athletics for many years before I got here. We're closing those down. Trust me, if Pat Chun and myself and Stacy Pearson could wave a magic wand and have that go back to the black overnight, we would have done it 5 years ago. And I'm not trying to make a joke here. We are working on that, but that's really important. And then finally, I'll say, in terms of athletics and funding, we have the smallest budget of all the Power 5 schools. So ACC, Southeastern Conference, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12. We are the smallest. So it's not like we're overspending everybody else. Our folks do more with less than just about anywhere else. But that being said, we have to get ourselves back in the black. We have to give ourselves so we're not a drain on other university programs to keep athletics funded. And that's something that I know we're going to continue to work toward. And I think as faculty and staff and students, you ought to expect to see regular positive progress. It's not going to be as fast as everybody would like, including myself, including Pat, including other of our leaders, but you ought to expect regular positive progress in that regard. So.
Okay, well, let's shift now to talk maybe a little bit more about the current system-wide initiatives that are important to us. Of course, you talked about Drive to 25. What I'd like to ask you to talk about is how the Drive to 25 and the 5-year strategic plan complement each other.
Yeah, I think we need a penultimate goal for university system, and that to me is what the Drive to 25 is. Now, how we structure our long-term plan is really how do we synthesize a lot of other plans that were already done. So for example, we've been involved, engaged in identifying research strengths in grand challenges. There's no reason to go back and redo those. It doesn't mean you don't tweak them, but there's no reason to take efforts that many of the folks in the room or online have made, pulling this information and data together to really redo those. But at some point, somebody goes, well, it's great to have the Drive to 25. You got your 5-year strategic plan. You've got your equity, diversity, and inclusion working groups. How does that tie into where we're going as an institution, and so on? And I think that, to me, is we got to pull all of those things together. Now, in the past, and many of you know this, if we did strategic planning in Pullman, that was deemed to be both for the system, WSU as a system, and for Pullman. We kind of lumped them together, and sort of what was good for Pullman was good for the system, was good for the system, was good for Pullman, and then we didn't worry so much about everybody else. Well, look at it now. Only a third of our students at WSU are not here in Pullman. And guess what? We've got growing campuses in these other places. So I think the challenge moving forward is, how do we start saying, okay, there's some system-oriented things for WSU that actually have to be planned differently. Now, it doesn't mean you have a 50-page WSU system plan, and then it could be much briefer, but we've got to have some things like, for example, what should our enrollment be for a system? We have tenure across our system. Do we want to continue to operate in that particular mode moving ahead? How do we resource our system? And that includes things like our new computer system that we're doing for payroll and human resources and things like that. What are those system things that are important? And then for Pullman, we need to have our own plan about what we want to do here on this particular campus that may be different than Vancouver's plan, than Tri-Cities plan, and Everett's plan, and Spokane, and so forth. And as a reminder, when you say, okay, Kirk, this system thing is a little bit of BS-y, right? You know, this is where most of the action is and all that stuff. We mentioned the 5 other campuses. We also have 4 R&E centers within WSU Extension. Guess what? They all have PhD students there, and many of you may work with those particular students. We have undergraduate or post students in Yakima in nursing and pharmacy, a couple hundred students there. We have students in Bremerton in our engineering program. So if you start looking at it, we got students in all kinds of physical locations across the state. So the idea that we can think of ourselves as really a single entity really doesn't work very well, because we've got all these pockets of students and WSU presence, if you will, all across the state. So to me, it's an opportunity, it's a challenge. And when I look at many of our deans and vice presidents sitting here, if I said, what are the biggest struggles that people have, it's how do I make sure, what is my system responsibilities, what's my Pullman responsibilities, and how do I balance those two things to make sure that I'm interacting with my colleagues at Vancouver and Tri-Cities and Everett, but I'm also paying the attention I need to my colleagues and the issues here in Pullman. And so we're going to have to struggle with this a little bit, argue about it a little bit, and come out with really a long-term idea of what we want to do with both things.
Okay, well, we have a couple of questions around Drive to 25 that came in. One questioner asked, can you talk about measurements, metrics, and progress? And you did address that in your first talk a little bit. Do you want to add anything?
Oh, sure. If I've got a microphone, I can always add something. I think the challenge is with any time we select metrics, there's always going to be some component of our campus community that goes, what about my area? What about my stuff? What about this? What about that? This isn't included, so it doesn't matter. And all of you know this creep is what'll kill you. You know, you sort of say, well, you know, we got 11. Well, how about 12? And then whoever's like 13th is, well, what about me? And then before you know it, if we're not careful, we have a strategic plan that has 70 or 80 things in there, and you go, well, Kirk, we included everything, but I'm not sure it's strategic. And so I think that's the thing with the Drive to 25 is we have conversations campus-wide with alumni, with faculty, staff, and students. You know, when we get to the end of our strategic planning process, right, we need to make sure that we have a clean set of fairly small number of metrics that we've elevated as an institution and said these are key things that we're going to invest in and we're going to focus on, and for a 4 or 5 year period, and then we can reevaluate. But I think that's one of the key things. The second thing, and this talks a little bit about words and how they're important, When I go out and visit with alumni, and and I'll do these kind of talks to these different groups, and I'll talk about our goal is to be a top 25 public research university. Every time I'll get this question. Well, what about the undergraduate program? Don't you care about the research program, undergraduate program at all? Because you want to be something different than WSU has been. The term public research university, when we use it sometimes with alumni and outside people for the academic community, they take as meaning something completely different than we've been. And I'll tell them, we've been a public research university since our founding, but we haven't used those words together. So then, one of the things that I would ask everybody to talk about, one of those metrics in there is graduation rate. One of those metrics in there is placement rate of our graduates within graduate school or professional school or job market within 6 months of graduation. You start looking at those and say, what do you take to make those successful, move the needle? There's a lot of work that has to go around our undergraduate program. So I would just always try and tell people, you know, this is not just to elevate research and scholarship at WSU. It's to move the whole university up, including our transformational undergraduate experience. We're just measuring it with a couple metrics that are really hard to move, but I think we can do it if we focus on it.
Okay, so you did talk about research and extension. I just want to acknowledge that there was a question about that, so if the questioner is here. But we'll move on, because that questioner wanted to know how extension fits into the Drive to 25.
But I really want to answer that. So,
you want to answer?
No,
well, you chatted a little bit about it.
I think one of the opportunities we have with research and extension, it's, you know, we're the envy of every other school in our state, right? Because we've got a physical presence in each particular county, at least one. And historically, research and extension has been a really critical part of the economic development work in those particular counties. There were people that really needed it. What our opportunity is guess what? The people doing R&E work in urban areas, we don't talk about enough. Some of the folks on community planning, research and extension is more than agricultural research, and I think we have an opportunity to promote and talk about that a lot more. And then as we look at delivery of health care to very rural areas, we have a network already set up, WSU does. How can we utilize our research and extension professionals? How can we utilize our facilities for things like healthcare delivery in the future? And it's exciting to think about that, and I look forward to that. Needs to be part of our long-term planning discussion. Is not, here's where everything else in the university is going to go, R&E is going to sit over here. We've got to be side by side, and I think there's some exciting things that we can do, but it may be feel uncomfortable because we may be going, wow, that's not what we've done the last 50 years, but that's okay. That needs to be all part of our discussion and dialogue.
Okay, so we have several other initiatives. You talked about the restoration of the university's fiscal health. There are others like modernization, campus culture, that seem to me to be foundational, like infrastructure, what we need to do, who we need to be in order to accomplish all these great things that we are able to accomplish. So I'd like to talk some more about campus culture. You addressed this earlier. You talked about some of those initiatives. We've attempted to address campus culture in the past. I think many people, as you say, we had a lot of feedback and action from students indicating that progress was a little bit too slow. We were not doing as well as we should. So we do have initiatives now. So I'd like you to talk some more about our efforts around campus culture, and perhaps what are you already noticing? What have we accomplished so far, and where do we still need to improve?
Yeah, every campus that I'm aware of, large public research universities across the country, is struggling with campus culture, how to evolve and transform to accommodate a much more diverse student body, a diverse faculty and staff student body moving forward. And at WSU, we have had some faculty and staff who've been here for years, and they have spent their career working on positively impacting our students and changing our culture. So and sometimes we talk about these things, they wax and wane based on resources, but there's a continual group out there that's done this for years and years and years. I just want to acknowledge that. The question, though, becomes sometimes that's heavily dependent on one or two individuals. They wind up leaving, retiring, whatever, and we can see programs that were vibrant and important to part of our campus community like go away. So the question is, and this is really what I want to spend some time on, is we must have changes in the way we do things that are sustainable, that are not dependent on a single person. Doesn't mean if Kirk's no longer president, all of a sudden those programs go away. Mary Jo Gonzalez is not any longer vice president for student affairs, that all of a sudden we stop doing these kind of programs. It's got to be the kind of things that are institutionally ingrained across lots of people that say this is an important part of our DNA, and if one or two people happen to go, even key leaders, we are going to continue to do this because we have a system and a process in place. So one of the reasons it's taken a little bit of a time, and those working groups have been working really hard, is it's important for us to do something that's sustainable and doesn't look like we checked a box and somebody complained about something. We said, hey, we threw something together and we can check the box, and now let's move on to something more important. To me, this is critically important if we're going to grow as a university. I truly hope in 20 years, if I could be transported back to WSU, or 30 years, and you look at the campus in that particular time, I think we're going to see an incredibly diverse campus of people from all over the world, lots of backgrounds and things like that, where I want everybody to feel an integral part of the campus community. So the steps that we're taking on implicit bias training, the steps that we're taking in terms of cultural competency for our leaders and eventually the entire campus, to me are necessary first steps. But we should be thinking, and I know Jamie Nolan and her team and other people on campus are already saying, okay, that's just step one. They're already thinking about what step 4 and 5 needs to be. And I think we got to bring the campus along, and we can't stop. We got to keep moving, and there's going to be stops and starts. But to me, anything difficult sometimes has stops and starts. The key is that we don't completely stop and decide we've solved it, or that it's not worth it, or we take political pressure and say, well, gee, this isn't important to us. And that's got to start at the top. It's got to start with me. It's got to start with the Board of Regents. It's got to start with my colleague vice presidents and our deans, and our student leaders, our staff leaders. And I think that's where we're going to start. And I'm excited. I think we're going to, a year from now, I think we're going to say, hey, isn't it amazing what we've done? And guess what we're planning? And I think that's going to be what's fun.
Okay, but you and Mary Jo are going to stay, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we do have one question around this topic that came in from a community member. This person asked, the majority of disabled staff and faculty do not disclose their disabilities, nor do they have a reasonable accommodation plan in place for this largely invisible but very real population on our campuses. What is your plan to increase support and retention?
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I saw this question a little bit in advance. We have to continue to evolve as a campus to support all of our faculty, staff, and student colleagues. And there are going to be areas where we traditionally don't have as much support as we need, as much staff as we need, or that we have clear policies, procedures. It's wonky, it's difficult, people aren't sure what to do. So whomever asks this question, I would like to ask them to reach out to me directly, because I think they've asked a general question and I need to know, or from audience members afterwards, send me a note. I'm happy to sit down with anybody and hear experiences, what's worked, what hasn't worked, where frustrations are. It's very difficult to solve a problem if you don't know sometimes where some of the key things are. So I want us to continue to evolve and work in this, but so I would welcome opportunities from our campus community. Send me a short note. I'll meet wherever somebody would like to talk through some of this and make sure that we're making the necessary improvements moving forward.
Okay, now I want us to talk briefly about internationalization. Sadly, we are going to soon run out of time, and we have a couple more things we want to talk about. There's been a lot of effort in increasing our international presence. And now I think we're probably going to call ourselves Cougs everywhere. But why is international presence important for a land grant?
Well, not just a land grant, but WSU. Just think when I go to Seattle and I visit with Cougs there that have businesses, or you talk to executives at Amazon or Microsoft or these kind of places, they're not just doing business in the state of Washington. They're not just doing business in Seattle. These are worldwide companies. And guess what? I want our students, when they leave here, regardless of what they study, to have experience with colleagues, with students, with doing group work, with people you hang out with from around the world. I want them to have meals and eat food that's not the same thing they ate growing up, that's just different. And to me, then when I sort of start with that next opportunity and I'm in an office that I'm working literally around the world with people, I've got some cultural competency, I've got some friends, I've learned some things, maybe I've done some visits outside the United States. I believe it prepares our students really to be global citizens in a global workforce. So that means two things, right? It means we need to have more opportunities for our own students and our faculty and our staff to be out on international experiences. We have less than 1,000 students at WSU that do study abroad a year. That is not a large number. Now, there's lots of constraints and things, but guess what? We've got a bunch of first-gen students going to be in Spain this summer on a study abroad trip. So I'm not convinced that we can't find ways to do it. The other part is to bring more international students to WSU as part of our undergraduate and graduate experiences. We've done that with the N2 program. We've done it with other types of things. Like any new initiative, there's been some stops and starts and been some bumps in the road, but I think it's absolutely critical for us to do moving forward. We can focus and say, well, gee, those students from outside the U.S. pay a much larger tuition and all those things, and that's true. I don't want to take away that there is a financial impact, but at the same time, I think the bigger issue is preparing our students to be successful as they leave WSU.
Okay, thank you. So I do want to talk about student success a little bit, but we are going to transition soon to questions from the audience. So if you have those, perhaps you can get ready. But it's hard not to talk a little bit more about this. You talked about our record enrollment, which is fantastic. So we are getting our students in the door. Can you talk some more about what is happening and what needs to happen to ensure that the students are successful, especially those that come from underrepresented communities once they arrive on our campuses?
So let me talk philosophically and practically, and the two eventually have to melt. I think in the long term at WSU, we need to make sure that we have faculty and staff that have sort of walked in the same shoes our students did. We need to make sure that they see faculty members that look like them, that had a background similar to them, that can provide mentoring in a different way than other folks can. The number of African American faculty we have at WSU is criminally low. And that's not going to just change by spontaneity. And I think we have to, say we want our faculty and staff to also be reflective of where our student body is, and we've got a long ways to go. So philosophically, we should be putting things in place, and guess what? Every other major public university is trying to do the same thing. So it's not like we're going to do it and nobody else is. But we've got to have that as a goal to get there, because I think I had the benefit of going through school, and I saw some people, and I said, man, I'd like to do exactly what they did, and we were able to sit down and kind of talk that through. We need to make sure our students have that. The other part is, in our DNA, if we talk about access to WSU, to a land-grant educational experience, that also means that if we're going to take, we can move some of our metrics way up by simply being hugely restrictive on students we let in and say, we're going to let in the academically elite. All of a sudden, we'll see some of these metrics go skyrocketing up, and we can say, wow, look at that, we're successful, look at our graduation rate. I'll say then what we did is we did that by shutting the door to opportunity to Washington residents. So if we're going to let in and have students as part of our community that may not have had the same sort of math teachers in high school or had access to the same sort of academic programming as a high school student, We can't just drop them in here and go, gee, how come you're not being successful? So we have to have wraparound programs that don't lower our standards. And I think this is a really key thing. They don't lower the standards. What they do is they help our students to get up and exceed those particular standards. And guess what? Those things cost money. They cost people. They cost resources. And if we're going to do it, we have to institutionally acknowledge that to do those things well, that means that we have to resource them appropriately. So I believe to my core that we must have access to Washington residents that don't see higher education as an opportunity. WSU has got to be there, and they go, that is my way to get there. And to do that, though, it's not just letting somebody in, letting somebody accumulate debt. It's being supportive to get over that hurdle, get that WSU degree, and for this to be a truly transformational student experience for them.
Thank you. So we want to give members of our live in the theater and online audience an opportunity. So if you have a question for Kirk, and you're here and you're able, can you please walk up to the microphone? If you're not able and you need some help with the microphone, you can wave your hand, we'll get to you. And also if you are online, we've been monitoring, Matt Haugen is monitoring your questions online. I have a bunch more questions, but I do want to give you an opportunity. I think someone's coming. If you could state your name and affiliation, please.
Hello, I'm Jamie Diaz. I'm a new staff member in the Carson Center for Student Success. I have a quick comment and then a question, if that's okay. The fact that the implicit bias training is optional, I fundamentally disagree with why that's optional, just because it's kind of like a half-assed commitment to diversity and inclusion. And as a queer Mexican American, I don't get to choose when systemic racism, affects me. And that'll affect your hiring, so I think it should just be required in one sense. So that's the comment. And then the question is, how do you define free speech and hate speech? And do you consider hate speech to be free speech?
Yeah, those are short-sounding questions, but take me a while to get to that. So
take your time.
So to your first point about whether or not the training should be mandatory or voluntary, we actually had a pretty vibrant discussion about this as a cabinet. I probably came down a little bit on the mandatory side. A lot of the professionals working in this particular area said, if you make it mandatory, then you got people showed up that are kind of pissed off, don't feel they should have to do it, and the training actually is not very helpful because they show up with a really poor attitude. What we decided as a leadership team that we wanted to do is say, look, our goal is going to be 100% people take it. Instead of saying everybody must do it, what we want to do is create a climate that says, hey, I know I don't know everything in that area, and I really need to do it. Now, you say, well, Kirk, that's just sticking your head in the sand. What I want to do then is after we go through for a year or even the fall semester, I'd like to actually go and say, okay, how many search committees did we have? How many went through the training and how many didn't? Let's just pretend that College of Engineering, 100% go through, the College of Widget Science, 0% go through. Then I think we got to sit down and work with them and say, okay, we got to understand here why none of your search committees have gone through this, while 100% have over here. When talking with our deans, and Dan Bernardo, our provost, had some conversation with our deans about this, they're all on board saying, we don't want to wait until July 1st to do this with search committees. We're going to start doing it today. So I want to wait and see, and I fully expect that our community should come back to me in 6 months and say, okay, Kirk, you didn't make it mandatory, so what are the numbers? How many people are doing it? If the numbers are really low and people are opting out, we may have to elect to do something different moving forward. So I'm like many people, I probably have a difficult time with some speech that would be termed hate speech and seeing really a valid purpose for it. But at the same time, just because somebody says something that's completely detestable, that I don't like, that I think is not helpful to our campus or community or to me as a leader, I still fundamentally believe that even though I can't stand what they're saying, I believe they have the right to say it. And so There's lots of things that I've seen out there in the political arena, rhetoric, people we've had on campus that I just personally abhor their viewpoints. But I do believe in the U.S. That part of our constitutional right is people have the right to say that stuff, even if it's hurtful. We don't like to hear it and things like that. And as a president, right, I can say and stand in front of any group, say, you know, I'm a big believer in free speech and all that. As I tell new aspiring leaders, that all sounds great until you have the first person come and you detest their views, and you've got a student show up and say, or a faculty member or a staff member or a community member say, I think that person should be allowed to speak. That's when the rubber hits the road. And that's a difficult decision that I make along with my colleagues here on anybody who comes to campus. Now, there is a point at which the speech or whatever is inflammatory enough that we start worrying about physical altercations, physical violence, things like that. That's an area that I think we have to be extraordinarily careful that even if it's detestable viewpoints, we have to make sure that people are physically safe around that and don't feel any sense of harm or possible physical harm from words or speech that's given like that. So, you're welcome.
Quick question from online. This is from Stacy, a mother of a current WSU student. Stacy would like to know what new partnerships or resources are being sought for increased financial aid for students and to pay for expanding academic programs.
Right. Well, Stacy, thank you for following along. And if I was following along from home, I'd have a glass of wine while I was watching this. So, you know, I think we've got a couple things that we continue to do. And I will just say the student need that we have out there for financial aid to help people go to school and the amount of resources we have, there's a gap there. And whether it's state resources or other, we're still not where we would like to be in terms of the ability to really help every family the way that we need to. I'm just going to state that up front. So what are we going to do? I mean, it's one thing to wave the flag and say that. First, we are going to be much more aggressive with some of our philanthropy and fundraising around student scholarships. And some of it is not just raising money for student scholarships. It turns out that doing some analysis, we found there are some scholarships that have been awarded, that the dollars are sitting there and we haven't been effective in deploying those particular resources to our students. So these tend to be things in particular colleges or units or things like that. So we're going to try and do that. The other thing, and one of the things that Dan Bernardo is going to do after he concludes his service as provost and is working on some special projects, is how do we raise more money for general scholarships that we can be using with incoming students and people like that are a general scholarship fund that are not tied to particular academic disciplines. We need a substantial endowment to be able to do that moving ahead. And we have people out there interested in supporting this. It's not that, it's we've got to put it together and make sure we're deploying those resources well. But in addition to extra dollar side, there's also things that we're trying to do on the expense side. So one, our tuition increase has been very modest over the last couple of years, and we actually had 2 years where tuition was decreased by the state of Washington. So that's one part of it. The other part is around instructional materials. We've been very aggressive in open online educational resources, and we have several online degree programs, for example, that have been started. 100% of their materials are open online educational resources. In other words, not having to go buy a textbook. So we also want to make sure that we're doing things to help control those expenses on instructional materials where we can. So it's working on the expense side and also going out and really using philanthropy effectively to provide more dollars for our student population.
Thank you.
Hi, Kirk.
Hey, Chuck. I saw you walk in, so I'm shocked that you're asking a question.
I know. I'm Chuck Pazashki. I was a former head of the Faculty Senate, and I'm a prof in MME. Do a lot of work with industrial staff. And one of the big things, of course, that I lay awake at night worrying about, number one, if you've read my book or not, but but keying to that is what I see as the crisis of validity that we have in higher ed. And what I mean by that is we all know we're living in this rapidly expanding noosphere of information. And it's coming from all sorts of different things where authorities used to be the thing, and we were the authorities, and now we're not. So have you thought, or are you doing any thinking about how we're going to keep our faculty valid, meaning keeping it real, in the context of these challenges that face higher ed? I know that's a tough one, but...
No, that's why I'm here. I do think about those types of things a lot. I have found that most of my faculty colleagues through my career, not all, but most, share a concern about making sure that what they're doing in the classroom is relevant and important to the students. And so I think we have to encourage people to be active and engaged with wherever students are going, to make sure that they're spending time there and hearing, what is it that is needed in our graduates coming out. Now in engineering and some fields, so that's pretty easy. I'll spend some time at Boeing, I'll go be here, I'll be there. I think this applies to all fields. For many of our faculty that may work with pre-law students, they are interacting with law schools to make sure that we're doing relevant particular things there. So, but we can incentivize some of these things, Chuck, at times, and I think instead of making it, well, find some personal time to go do that, how do we make sure we put something in place so that faculty realize that that's a valued activity, that's important, and they're not taking a financial salary hit to go do that, and that there's actually some financial support to do it. So I want to continue to engage on what things we can do to make sure faculty feel relevant and doing what they need to in the future. I still feel, though, education to me is still an intensely personal experience. If we were just in the business of content delivery, there's much more effective ways to do content delivery than a classroom, a person, live, types of things like that. And so to me, I struggle with how important is content delivery to us, and how important is the occasional kick in the rear end I needed as a 19-year-old when I wasn't working hard enough, when I wasn't focused, when I was more worried about who I was dating than the biology class I was taking. And I had somebody pull me aside that said, Kirk, you're smarter than this, you can do better than this, and you need to get your act together. How is it that we balance those two things, using technology for content delivery, but the personal aspect of working with students in education, and what's that need to look like? That's what I lay awake at night, not worried about, but I do think that we have to have more dialogue as an academy about some of these kind of things than you talking to me or me talking to somebody in my office and us not engaging our campus community. And I will say, last thing, it's broader than that, Chuck, but as I've talked to our Faculty Senate leadership colleagues, one of the opportunities that I believe this book has done, and it's not the book itself. When I put this in my letter to campus, I put those letters out, I hope somebody reads them, right? When I put in there an invitation for a book, I kind of thought, if I had 10 people on campus that came back and said, sure, Kirk, send me one, maybe I'll look at it over the summer. And we're up to nearly 300 requests for books. What that told me was not that the book itself, a lot of people are interested in the topic, but our campus community wants to talk about and dialogue some of these types of issues. And as our Faculty Senate, as our cabinet meetings and all that, we get so focused on what we got to do for next week that sometimes we don't take a step back and say, what's the big picture look like? What's important to us? And next academic year, I want us to have some campus community discussions around some of this and dialogue where we're arguing back and forth in a positive way, but that we're thinking about these things. You all think about them, but in my time here, we've not had the campus level discussions around some of these things that I think we need to. And I think people want to have them, but we're also busy that we're not going to willing to organize it. So that's where leadership comes in, working with you all as faculty, staff, and students on all of our campus locations is let's have some of these conversations and arguments in a good way, and I think it'll shape our future. So, and I think we're out of time.
Yes, sadly we're out of time. Would you like to invite everyone to the reception?
Yeah, the reception's right out there. And anyway, thank you for being here. Go Cougs. Thank you. That's awesome. Well done. Thank you.
If I finish my